Hey guys, sorry, I'm trying to figure this out. I hope that it's working. Okay, I'm gonna give it just a second because last time I recorded this, it just said loading the entire time. So, if you can't see on my screen right now, it says No Child Left Behind versus Every Student Succeeds Act. So, if you don't know, No Child Left Behind is an act that was passed in January 2002 by President George W. Bush. It was a reauthorization for Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. And then Every Student Succeeds Act is the one that took over No Child Left Behind, which was passed by Barack Obama December 10th of 2015. So we're going to do a little activity. Can you tell me what you know about No Child Left Behind? Anything you know? Think of what you know, what you've heard, anything. And on my whiteboard here, we're going to write it down. So great. Great job, Amanda. So on No Child Left Behind one was signed by President George W. Bush. We hit that on that one. Great job. So another one would be one president was written or signed in by Barack Obama, which was our last president. Great job. So we're still going to write down. So another thing that one overrided the other, which happened with both of them. How about one, you have to pass the test to get funding for your school. So then we're going to do the Every Student Success Act, that one as well. We're going to write down everything about that one. So these are predicted questions that we would have down on our whiteboard here. So one was signed by George Bush, one was signed by Barack Obama, one was signed to override the other, which we did for both of them. What was the toughest part of Every Student Succeeds Acts for the district to get a handle on? That was one of the questions. How many states can include school climates in the ESSA accountability system? How is it accounted for? How does ESSA handle mental health in school? Adequate yearly progress, how is that determined? What if a school does not improve? So those are all some great questions and things that maybe we know a little bit about both of these acts. So in my research and my thesis is that the Every Student Success Act is the better one of the two. And it is more of the ESSA is more of a movement for the future. It has made it so tests are something that are now measurable instead of something that's not such a financial decision for the school districts and the school. No Child Left Behind was based off of the performance of a test that students were having to take. And then the teachers were taking the time to basically push the students to learn how to take that test instead of learning curriculum and being assessed and tested on that curriculum. So ESSA went away from basing all financial growth off of test scores, and it made it so students could be graded on their performance without the school being affected. So now I want to touch on how these laws compare. So I say that one is better, but that's just my opinion. So I'm going to let you know that there are some factors of both acts that are the same. So testing, all students are still tested in 3rd and 8th grade and then once again in 11th for math and reading. But ESSA has also incorporated a science testing that they expect the students to test on at some point in their 1st through 12th grades of completing school. So accountability. So No Child Left Behind was defined, they defined their progress primarily on test scores. The goal of all students was that they would all be proficient by a date. That's for all schools in all states. So for every Student Success Act determines that their own definition of progress is using multiple measures. And states also determine how much weight to place on each measure, but a majority of the weight must be an academic indicator, which is test scores, graduation rates, different things like that. Schools need to have improvement. So No Child Left Behind schools that did not make progress toward federal goals were labeled as failures, and states were then instructed to intervene in specific ways addressing those failing schools. Every Student Success Act states work with local school districts to determine their own responses for low performing schools. So then they'll step in and help to provide so that school can meet a certain standard. School intervention funding, No Child Left Behind provides no additional dollars for school improvements. So every Student Success Act does not specifically authorize new money, but allows states and districts to direct a portion of the Title I dollars to wherever they need to go. Teacher evaluations are not very, it's not official part of the No Child Left Behind, but for the Obama administration, which is through the ESSA, that required states to establish teacher evaluation system based in part of the students' test scores. So another activity, let's do a quick test. I will tell you on this next test, we have to get 100% if you want to move on. If you do not get 100%, we're going to have to retake this test until you do get 100%. So is everybody ready? I'm totally joking. So how did this automatic test or thought of tests make you feel? A little uneasy, unsure? Yeah, this is how a lot of students were told that they were going to have to work with the No Child Left Behind spontaneous test, and you're gonna have to work until you get 100% because it was based off the financial needs of the school. So here's another one. We're gonna take a test. Before we take this test, we're gonna review all the material that we've gone over, and then while we review, let's take some notes so that we can use this on our test. So can you see the difference between No Child Left Behind, spontaneous, you have to do it and you have to get 100%, or you have to do your best. With this one, the ESSA, we're gonna take our time. We're gonna work through it and we're gonna work through it all together. Big difference. So between the two surprise tests, which one did you feel more comfortable taking? I know I would go with the Every Student Success Act because, man, I felt I need to have more reassurance. I do not like the spontaneous stuff and an expectation that I have to get 100%. That's just not good for my nerves. So this is an image that I found to be really compelling and that I thought was something that fit my humor. So in 1960, there's parents holding up a report card with an F on it and the child was in trouble. But then in 2010, it's the parents and the child going to the teacher and saying these grades are terrible and them wanting a change. So what's bad about No Child Left Behind? There was many things that were wrong with it, that it made teachers and funding come away from schools and education. They had to limit certain things within the school districts to make up for the lost money that they weren't getting because their school was not performing up to the certain test score. They had to cut into PE time, PE activities. They had to cut into teachers' pay. They had to cut into a lot of things, like get rid of some teachers, not necessarily cut teachers' pay, but get rid of teachers because they couldn't get the funding. So a couple of things that I just did, these are some pictures of 6 different developments of ESSA, so you can gain an understanding of how it's different and how it is an improvement for the future acts that will come about for education. Here's another one, distinguish between the two acts. No Child Left Behind did definitely leave behind children. This talks about more of the testing and things that have to go into it, and how it kind of made it so parents were given misinformation, and then it caused a negative outlook with teachers and students, and how come the kids were not getting good grades on these tests, and why are they being lost in the shuffle of different things. So these are a couple more pictures that I put in of No Child Left Behind. So how do you feel Do you feel that No Child Left Behind was a good thing, or do you feel that ESSA is a better thing? I know for myself, I chose ESSA, but that's just how I feel. So for you, you get to gauge your opinion. So as a recap, as you can see, both acts had flaws, but they both had very good intentions to a certain point. But there are some flaws that cut too deep into the student's ability to progress. So as we move forward, you can see that ESSA is the better of the two acts because it had students' educational growth in mind. And so now that is my presentation. And let's hope that it worked fine.